Okay, today, 13.7. We're going to learn about the sine graph. Later on, we're going to learn about how to graph a cosine and how to graph a tangent. Okay, so we're going to go back to this unit circle that we learned at the beginning of this chapter. And this point right here is called 1, 0. This point right here is called 0, 1. This point right here is called a -1, 0. And this point right here is called 0, -1. You can remember from the beginning of the chapter, if I ask you to find the cosine of 0 degrees, you would look at the first value, which is 1. If I asked you to find the sine of 0 degrees, you would have looked at the second value, which is 0. We're only doing the sine. The sine is the y value, and the cosine is the x value of only this circle. So, I'm going to show you what y equals a sine of k theta is the equation of a sine. A stands for the amplitude, how high it is. Remember how we figured out the height? The k stands for the cycle, how long it takes to make one sine. And there's another one called period, and there's a formula for that. It's 2 pi divided by k, and to find k, it's 2 pi divided by period. Those two are easy to remember. K is 2 pi divided by p, period is 2 pi divided by k, the amplitude is the height, k is the cycle, how long it takes to make just one sine graph. The period is how long to make one complete sine graph. So, this is what a sine graph looks like. To make a sine graph, you need 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one is the origin, so there are 5 slashes. Every sine graph starts at 2 pi. Not every one, just this generic one, which is y equals sine of theta. At 0 degrees, the sine is 0. If this is 2 pi and there are 5 points, the middle one needs to be pi. This one needs to be pi over 2, and this is 3 pi over 2. Okay, so at 0, it's 0. It's the y value. At pi over 2, which is 90 degrees, the y value is 1. At pi, it's 0 again. At 3 pi over 2, which is 270, it's down here at a -1. And then back again, what's the y value? Back at 2 pi, which is the same thing as 0, it's back at 0 again. So this is what a sine graph looks like. It's curvy. Do not do this. Here are your 3 points. Here's one there and one there. Do not connect them like this. It's not corners. There are curves. You need to know that the sine graph always starts at 0 degrees. Everybody see that? That the graph always starts at 0 degrees? When we study cosine and tangent, it does not start at 0 degrees. So that's why you need to know that a sine makes a little hill. See, here's the little hill, and then it makes a little valley. And it always starts at 0 degrees. This graph's going to change, and I'll tell you why it's going to change later. Okay, next page. Part 1. There are 4 parts. The first part, you need to name the cycle, you need to name the amplitude, and you need to name the period of everything. The first one, I'm going to give you a graph. This is what the graph looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 90 degrees, and you're going to go up 2, and we're going to go down 2. It starts here at 0. It goes up it comes down, it goes down, it comes back up, and this is what it looks like. And if that's 90, half of that is 45. Okay, looking at the sine graph, they want you to find cap, C, A, and P. So for the part one, all you're doing is finding C, A, and P. Okay, the amplitude, I'm going to start with that one first, is the height of the graph. Do you remember how we figured out the amplitude? 1/2. Do you guys remember the formula from last week? 1/2 the absolute value of max minus the min. We're not going to use that formula anymore. All we're going to do is see how high the graph goes, and it's going as high as 2. You don't even need to use the formula. The amplitude of this graph is, the height is 2. The period is how long it takes to make one complete sine graph. One complete sine graph. Remember, one complete sine graph is a hill and a valley. So what's the period? 90 degrees. That's the period. 90 degrees. Okay, the next thing you have to do is find the cycle. And if you go back, I'm going to use a formula to do it. To find the cycle, it's 2 pi divided by p. Everybody see that right there? Right here is where I'm looking. 2 pi divided by p, and I already know what my p is. So it's 2 pi divided by p. And I know that p is 90 degrees because I just figured out that that's how long it takes to make one sine graph, out to 90 degrees. Okay, I hope most of you know that 2 pi is the same thing as 360 degrees. So if you don't like 2 pi, just change it to 360. 360 divided by 90 is 4. Final answer. I found the cap. Now we're going to find the cap. Let's do one more equation. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make this pi. Let's make this pi over 2. Let's make this 3 and down 3 and 0 here, 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 and here. And this is what the graph looks like. And we want to find cap. Okay, I'm going to find the amplitude first. The amplitude, how high does the sine graph? Again, why are you studying sine graphs? Oceanographers study sines. Sines are like waves. Springs look like this. You can condense a spring, you can stretch out a spring. Kind of like a slinky. You can stretch the slinky out, you can compress the slinky. How high does this curve go? It goes all the way up to 3. That's the amplitude. The period is always the 4th slash. So that's easy. The 4th slash is pi. I'm going to put it right here. You notice that the first graph was in degrees and the second graph was in radians. So to figure out my cycle, it's 2 pi divided by p. It's going to be 2 pi divided by p, and p is pi. I'm going to leave it in radians because it's easier. I can cancel out my pi's. Final answer is 2. Okay, we're going to do the same thing, except without a graph, we're going to stare at the equation. Y equals 2 sine of 1/2 theta. So instead of a graph, we're going to stare at an equation. If you look at the equation that I gave you, y equals, let's look right back here, y equals a single. The number out in front is the amplitude. The number in front of theta is the k, and the k is the cycle. So they already give you 2 of the 3 things. They give you the amplitude and the cycle. And how do you find the period? You're just going to take 2 pi divided by the k. So if they give you an equation, all you have to do is cap. The amplitude is the number out in front. It's 2. Remember, amplitude meets height. The c is the number in front of the theta, which is 1/2. And the period is 2 pi divided by k, which stands for the cycle, which is 2 pi divided by then 1/2. Some of you think 2 pi divided by 1/2 is pi, but it's not. I'm going to write it as 2 pi, change my division sign to multiplication, and remember you need to flip this to 2 over 1. So 2 pi times 2 is 4 pi is my period. Okay, do one more. Y equals a -4 sine of 3 theta. Y equals a -4 sine of 3 theta. Let's find cap. The number out in front is the amplitude, but they're going to try to trick you. There's a negative sign. Amplitude means height. Height is always positive, so if you see a -4, don't put the -4, just put a +4. The negative does something to the graph. You remember? All the way back from the beginning, negative means to flip your graph or to reflect your graph. So we don't do anything with the negative sign. Remember, amplitude means height. You can't have a negative height. So you have to ignore the negative and just put 4. The cycle is the number in front of theta, which is 3. And the period, there's a formula. It's 2 pi divided by k, and k is 3. No, you cannot simplify that. You cannot simplify a 2 and a 3. Final answer. That's part 1. Part 2. Part 2 is they give you the graph. You have to write the equation. So I'll do 2 of these here. They give you a graph. You have to write the equation. So we're going to do 2 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. This one, let's just go up. Let's make this a 1, and this makes a -1. This is 4, and this is a -4. Let's make this 4 pi. Half of 4 pi is 2 pi. Let's make this 120. Half of 120 is 60. Okay, put my first dot at 0. At this spot, we'll go all the way up to 4. At 2 pi, come back down, here, and here. No, you don't need to know how to graph until part 4. This is the problem, so I'm just setting it up. Put my first dot here, my next dot here, my next dot here, my next dot here, my next dot here. You will be given the graph. You do not have to graph them. We do not graph them until part 4. You need to come up with the equation, and here's the equation. Y equals a sine of k theta. So, you're going to write y equals something sine of something theta. Same thing for this one. Y equals something sine of something theta. You're going to fill in those 2. Do you notice that the amplitude is in your equation? And the cycle. 2 of the 3 things are in your equation. No period is not in there, only amplitude and cycle. So, how high does the first graph go? It goes up to 4. How high does the second graph go? It goes up to 1/2. Can you see that it goes up to 1/2? Okay. This last dash stands for the period. So how do you get the cycle if you're given the period? Do you remember how to find the cycle? It's 2 pi divided by the period, which is 4 pi. The pi's cancel each other out. 2/4 is the same thing as 1/2. Final answer. Same thing with this. How do you get to the cycle? The period is 2 pi divided by the period. Well, I know that my period is 120. I'm not going to work with 2 pi, though. I don't like 2 pi. I rather work, since it's not in radians, it's in degrees. I'm going to work with 360 instead. 360 divided by 120. 360 divided by 120 is exactly 3. Okay, those are not your final answer. I'm going to come back to part 2 in a minute to tell you why that's not exactly right. I'll tell you why in the next part. And maybe even in part 3 even. Okay, part 3. Again, write an equation. They give you the amplitude and the period. They give you the amplitude and they give you the period. They give you the amplitude and they give you the period. For example, let's see. They give you 3 for the amplitude and 2 pi for the period. This one they give you 7 for the amplitude and they give you 60 degrees for the period. So instead of a graph, they just give you the words and they want you to write an equation. Y equals amplitude 3 sine of something theta. You have to fill in that something theta, but remember this stands for the period, and what needs to go here is the cycle. So I need to take 2 pi and divide it by 2 pi. 2 pi divided by 2 pi is 1. Okay, this one, y equals 7 sine of something theta. You have to fill it in. In order to fill it in, I'm not going to work with 2 pi. I rather work with 360 divided by my period, which is 60. And 60 goes into 360 exactly 6 times. Okay, last part, part 4. Now, we're going to learn how to actually graph given an equation. So how do we graph given an equation? So, let's do y equals 4 sine of theta divided by 2. I'm going to go up 4, I'm going to go down 4. Every sine graph needs 5 dots. So I need 4 slashes, 1 including the origin. My last slash right here stands for the period. The 4 this 4 stands for the amplitude. That's why I went up 4 and down 4. This theta, okay, I gotta go over here. If you have theta divided by 2, I hope you know that it means a half of a theta. I hope you know that theta divided by 2 or a half of theta means the same thing. That little half stands for the cycle. So I need to figure out what my period is by taking 2 pi and dividing it by a half, which ends up being 2 pi. Change my division sign to multiplication and flip the 1/2 to a 2. My period ends up being 4 pi. If there are 5 slashes, there has to be a middle slash. If there's 5 slashes, this is the middle slash. Half of 4 pi must be 2 pi. On the test, I need to see this and this one. I need to see it, what you're counting by. You know every sign starts at 0, so you're going to put your first dot at 0. You know at the next slash that you need to go up to 4. The next slash goes back down to 0. The next slash goes down to -4. And the last slash goes back to 0. You should always have 3 dots on the x-axis and 2 dots off of them. And again, when you connect it, they should be curvy. You should make a little hill and a little valley if you do it right. Okay, let's make another graph. I'll make 2 more and we'll be done. Y equals a -3 sine of 8 theta. Okay, what do we do if there's a negative sign? We really haven't talked about it. I know I'm going to go up 3 and down 3 because of the 3. I know I need 5 slashes, 1 including the origin. This is my period. I get my period by taking 2 pi and dividing it by 8. 2 pi and dividing it by 8. I simplify that to pi over 4. If you don't like pi over 4, write it as 45 degrees. This middle slash right here is half of 45, which is 22.5 degrees. It's okay that it's a decimal. I know every sign starts at 0. Okay, now comes the negative. What happens if there's a negative sign in your problem? Do you notice that every graph we studied started at 0 and went up? Look at all the graphs we've done. We started at 0 and went up. Everybody sees. Now, what happens if there's a negative sign? What do? If there's a negative sign, you know you start at 0, but instead of going up, your next dot is down here, your next dot's back up, your next dot's up here, your next dot is back down. So this is what the curve is going to look like. It reflects it or flips it. It reflects it or flips it. So instead of starting at 0 and going up, you go down. Okay, now I need to go back to part 2 and part 3 because I forgot something. And this is what I forgot. I knew I forgot it. I left it to here. If they want you to write an equation, and this is the equation, y equals a sine of k theta, and they give you a positive and it looks like this is going to stay a positive 4. If this starts and goes up, this is going to be a positive 1/2. If this graph would have started at 0 and started down, this would have been a negative 1/2. So you have to make sure you know if it's a positive 4 or a negative 4. Okay, so part 2, I didn't have to change anything, but part 3, I do. Here's part 3. You're supposed to write an equation. Okay, watch carefully. They give you the amplitude and they give you the period. We do not know what the graph looks like. Everybody hear what I just said? We do not know what the graph looks like. We don't have a picture of the graph. We don't know. We know that the graph starts at 0. We just don't know if it goes up or if it goes down. We don't know if we should put a positive or a negative. So, to be on the safe side, they ask you to write an equation and you don't know what the graph looks like, you need to put plus or minus, because you don't know what the graph looks like, so you have to put plus or minus. If you know what the graph looks like, which is right here, you don't have to put plus or minus, because you know that it's a positive, because it goes up. Okay, I've got one more to do, and that's it. Y equals 2 sine of, let's make it a negative 2 sine of pi theta. Okay, I'm going to do this one a little quicker. I'm going to go up 2, I'm going to go down 2. I'm going to put 4 slashes. The last slash stands for the period. In order to get the period, it's 2 pi divided by the cycle, which ends up being pi up there. Pi's cancel out. The only thing you have left is a 2. There are 5 slashes, and the last one is a 2. The middle slash must be a 1. I'm going to start at 0, but instead of going up, I'm going to start and go down to a negative 2. Back up, and back down. Connect my dots, and I'm done. The worksheet is given, and you can start working on the worksheet.